Um, I won't be reading my title. It is about promoting multiculturalism and global citizenship through Italian racialized authors. And today I'm just walking you through some of the concepts in citizenship and global citizenship education in Italy, as well as understanding the problem of representation in the national high school exam, and the way in which students build their sense of belonging, which led me to design an RFCDC, which I will explain what it is, based curriculum, building off of Muller's 4-theme model after Sims Bishop's theory of mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. And then I will also talk about the expected implementation of my curriculum, which is expected to begin next month. So I am a citizen of the world is what Diogenes said when he was asked how he described himself as, and he refused to describe himself as a white Greek male. And so this gave way to the idea of cosmopolites, which then is the idea that people used to create the concept of cosmopolitanism, especially Martha Nussbaum used this idea to imply that with respect to fundamental moral values such as justice, we should regard all human beings as fellow citizens. And therefore, the goal of world citizenship is to promote a literary education that adds to the canon, to the Western canon. And this is what I'm trying to do in my study, even though I'm actually designing an anthology that is solely based on female and racialized authors, just as a thought experiment. So the situation with youth democratic engagement in Italy right now is that Italy is the second country after Spain for youth, for foreign-born youth, and that actually places it as a very interesting spot for this study. The other problem is that schools currently do not engage students in youth democratic themes, and as you can see from this chart from Open Poll Days, the percentages of students who do engage in voluntary associations or associations that have to do with environmental rights or human rights are very low. This means that schools are failing at teaching students how to be good citizens, but there's also another issue, which is that most of the most of the students who sit in the Italian classroom, born of foreign parents, are not citizens, because as of now, Italy is enforcing the jus sanguinis, therefore the right of blood. So the students who are born in Italy but whose parents don't have an Italian citizenship cannot be citizens, and they can only apply to Italian citizenship when they turn 18. And they have like a 1-year window time to do so. But this makes it very hard to teach citizenship, because obviously it would be kind of a slap in the face of students who are not even citizens. So the suggestion is, rather than teaching citizenship, to teach global citizenship. And UNESCO defines global citizenship education as education that helps students develop the skills, values, and attitudes that enable citizens to lead healthy and fulfilled lives, make informed decisions, and respond to local and global challenges through education for sustainable development and global citizenship. I am using this model by Bosio and Shuttle that is called Global Ethical Citizenship. And in this model, they try to enforce these 5 points: so values creation, identity progression, collective involvement, global disposition, and intergenerational mindset. And I will talk a bit more about that. And I think that this can help students feel part of a wider global and local community. This is particularly stressed in this model, the idea that the global citizenship education should start at the local level and then become global. This is also in line with the reference framework for competencies for democratic culture put forward by the Council of Europe. This is what I call RFCDC. This is a competence butterfly model that shows values, attitudes, skills, and knowledge, and critical understanding. And the idea is that students should be made aware of all these skills, and they should be given activities that help them to develop and also to train all of these skills, although there is no pass-fail exam. This is just a continuum, and students can be at different levels in values, attitudes, or skills, and knowledge and critical understanding. As of now, the Ministry of Education in Italy has put forward some guidelines for global citizenship education and civic education. In particular, in 2007, they designed this document called The Italian Way for the Intercultural School, where they prompt teachers to stop improvising and start introducing a specific curricular space for intercultural citizenship education, as well as ask schools to enhance the rich heritage of experiences, tools, and good practices that are already established in the field by each school. So this is sort of enforcing multicultural education, but ultimately what happens is that each school is left alone with their implementation strategies. By the same token, 4 years ago, they put forward a ministerial decree for the teaching of civic education in their curricula. But what happens is that all of these skills are not tested by the final national exam. So just to give you a brief overview for those of you who are not familiar with the Italian school system, we have 6 years of kindergarten, so it's the blue line that you see, and then there's primary school, which is elementary school, the orange one, and then we have middle and high school, which is the yellow bit. And what I'm focusing on is actually high school, and high school can be either professional, technical, or liceo. So that's the one where the study of literature is actually considered as one of the main objectives, which is why I'm focusing on a study in a liceo. What happens is that every high school at the end of the 5-year cycle has a national exam. The national exam consists in 3 different tests. I'm focusing on the first one because that's the same for everybody, and it's divided in 3 typologies of texts. And type A deals with literary analysis, type B is argumentative essay, and type C is a critical reflection on a current topic. That has been shrunk after COVID, but it's kind of similar to what it was before COVID. So I have analyzed the literary prompts from 2004 to 2024. And what emerged is a total absence of migrant or racialized authors. So the only migrant author is Cristiana de Caldas Brito. She's Brazilian, and she also worked for Italian TV. So that's why it's kind of an exception. And the other thing that emerges from this is the quasi-absence of female authors. And within the pool of female authors, it's also interesting to note that most of the authors that are proposing these literary prompts are not literary authors. So they are journalists, psychologists. As you can see, Vera Geno, Oriana Fallaci is a journalist, Rita Levi-Montalcini is a scientist. So there's also this idea that what is written by female authors is not worthy of being introduced in the literary canon, and in fact they are never put in the type A prompts, which are the ones about the analysis of a literary text. And this is also reflected in the program for Italian Licei in the 5th year. As you can see, even if you're not familiar with Italian literature, all of the authors who are proposed for study are male, and there is no mention to racialized author or racialized literature whatsoever. Additional problems are that there is a financial neglect of secondary schools in favor of elementary and lower secondary schools, where the multicultural programs are actually implemented more. And there is a missing analysis of the bridge between theory and praxis. This lack of funding also makes upper secondary schools, so high schools, at the highest chance of failure for the immigrant students, because most often they don't speak the language. And this also leads to an ambivalent model of integration, where some of these students are put into so-called ghetto classes because they don't have enough proficiency in Italian, and these students are dealt with as an emergency rather than as a reality that is now the reality of Italy. And this is also due to the fact that there is an unrealistic perception of immigrant numbers. The ways that students build their sense of belonging also tells us why there is a failed students representation in the curriculum. So first of all the students enrolled in Italian high schools, more than half of them are female. And at the same time, despite achieving higher levels of education, females are then less employed after school, to the point that we have an employment rate of 53% for females and 73% for men. And at the same time, the children who arrived in Italy after the age of 10, 1 in 10, so more than half of them, do not feel Italian. They still feel foreigner, especially specific communities such as the Chinese, Ecuadorian, Peruvian, and Filipino community. who feel foreigner even when they're born in Italy. And the only students who actually do feel higher sense of belongings are the ones coming from Romania, or in general, Eastern Europe and Morocco. This tells us that because they don't speak, because 70% of them, only 70% of them speaks Italian, this also tells us that neither language proficiency nor being born in the country are reasons strong enough to define their sense of belonging. In fact, when interviewed by Saki, minoritized students define their sense of belonging to a cosmopolitan community along the lines of multiculturalism, multireligiousness, and multilingualism. Therefore, this has to be reflected in the curriculum for them to feel that they belong. This is where Sims Bishop metaphor of mirrors, windows, and sliding doors come in. She came up with this in 1990, reflecting on the lack of representation for Black and Latinx students in the curricula of US schools. And she says that when children cannot find themselves reflected in the books they read, or when the images that they see are distorted, negative, or laughable, they learn a powerful lesson about how they are devalued in society of which they are part. So what we can conclude when applying this metaphor to the Italian curriculum is that the current literary school curriculum in Italy neglects both minoritized female students and racialized students by not providing them mirrors to their own experiences, as well as depriving non-minoritized students of windows on another culture or other cultures. So in conclusion, it deprives all students of sliding doors to a broader ethical global community. To kind of address this, the idea is to design an RFCDC-based curriculum that should offer opportunities for, first of all, reflection, so that students can develop critical awareness and understanding, and they can share the experiences they had in regards to what they read. Then analysis, so analysis of written or video sources, any kind of source really, where they can be encouraged to reflect on certain topics and compare them. So students most often see what's different from them as bizarre or even wrong, or worse than the way they live. So teachers should provide opportunities for comparison, and they should also translate into experience, which can be real or imagined. So it can be also a written reflection or a visual reflection, but most often that should translate into action, so real action in the community. So what I did is that I designed a curriculum using the RFCDC and the way in which the RFCDC actually puts the guidelines of the Ministry of Education into practice, but also I followed Muller's 4-theme design that was designed after Sims Bishop metaphor, and I also created an anthology that has activities that test or give opportunity for the 5 dimensions that I talked about, so reflection, analysis, comparison, experience, and action. So Muller created guidelines for the kind of books that should be introduced in a curriculum that wants to be anti-racist and wants to offer mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. The first pillar is consciously interracial books that project a vision of a multicultural, multiracial society in which people from recognized and diverse backgrounds interact. The second one is books that follow the principle people are people. So they present the readers with the real experiences of racialized groups. And similarly, the third pillar is books that offer distinctive experiences. So in these books, integration should not be the focus, but the text should present specific values and attitudes or linguistic patterns of a given culture, of a racialized culture. And the fourth pillar is books that cope with racism and discrimination, both in the present and in the past. And this is very similar to the intergenerational awareness that Bosio and Chateau were talking about. So I took especially female racialized authors that would fit these categories. So now I'll give you an example. Of course, my anthology comprises of many more authors, but these are very representative. So for category 1, I chose
I'm sorry, just 5 minutes to go, Monica.
Thank you. For category 1, I chose Laila Wadia's Curry di Pollo, so chicken curry, because it's a short story where the protagonist's Indian family meets the Italian boyfriend. So there is also a generational gap as well as a cultural negotiation of differences. Category 2 is Ribka Sibatu's Aulo, Canto Poesie dell'Eritrea, so poem song from Eritrea. Sibatu is an Eritrean author, and this book is very interesting because she left Eritrea she fled Eritrea to avoid getting married to an army officer, and she wrote this book both in Italian and in Tigrinya, which is the language spoken in Eritrea. So this gives an idea also of linguistic differences. An example of an author from category 3 is Chama Cassandra Smadu's Lame in Libri, Blades in Books. It's a short story that narrates the protagonist's sister preparation to the ceremony of Gudnin, which is female mutilation. So this gives way to the students to also talk about cultural differences. And an author from category 4 is Jara Khan's Conosci la tua storia, Know Your History. It's a short story that exposes the white savior complex that sometimes white volunteers working at refugee or migrant associations have. So it makes us reflect also on the practices of associations, of voluntary associations. So what's coming next? Next month, actually, I might be going back to Italy to implement this, even though originally I was going to follow it online, is that I'm going to implement the curriculum in 2 classes of the Liceo Copernico in Bologna. The reason why I chose this is that, again, Liceo is the one where the study of literature is considered to be one of the main objectives. The Liceo also offers heterogeneity in terms of socioeconomic status and also interaction between racialized and non-racialized students. And Bologna is the city in Italy with the highest migratory balance. So younger generations constitute, especially foreign younger generations constitute 63% of the population, and students in the 5th year are already familiar with the context of modern authors because they are studying the 20th century. Data collection will happen with a pre-study interview where I kind of understand at what level of sociolinguistic and cultural awareness the students are, and a post-study interview. And I will also interview the students in the meanwhile and collect their works, and I will collect a final project as well as field notes from my observation, both in person and online. The limitations of the study, of course, must be acknowledged, our time. So the study would benefit from a longer implementation, of course, whereas this study in particular will be implemented for just 2 months. In the context of the civic education, the 30 hours of civic education that the school allowed me to use. The language. So in Italy, there's a lack of language to discuss complex terms such as ethnicity, blackness, race, and so on. So it's hard to put those into Italian, as well as some students might not be fluent in Italian, as we saw. So that might be a challenge, as well as financial support. So I might not be physically present throughout the whole study, and another teacher is carrying out the study for me when I'm not present. So I don't have full control on teaching pedagogy, and this can lead to possible manipulation of data. But other than that, I hope that I will be able to collect all the data on time and to make an analysis of the data. So yeah, thanks for listening. And yeah, if you have questions, you can contact me or ask me now.
Well, thank you, Monica. Very